I'm Pete Clark from the Autism Info Centre. Today we're looking at the identity language of autism, and specifically whether it should be what they call identity first or what they call person first. This is an incredibly important thing because the words we choose really do shape how we understand and respect one another in our society. Have you ever stopped to consider how the language used to describe a person can change the way we see them, or even how they see themselves? It's a question that gets right to the heart of how we can go about building a truly inclusive community. So today, I'm going to walk you through the nuances of this ongoing discussion, explaining why some people feel so strongly about these terms and how you can navigate those preferences in your daily life to show genuine respect. So what is the difference between identity first and person first language? Well, identity first language puts the word autistic right at the front. For example, you might say he's an autistic person or they're autistic people. While person first language puts person before the condition, like person with autism, people with autism. So it might sound like a really minor thing, but for many it reflects deeply held beliefs about who they are. So why do so many autistic self-advocates prefer to be called autistic? They often see their autism as an inseparable, inherent part of their identity, much like somebody might say, I'm British, rather than I'm a person with Britishness. So for them, autism isn't something they have, like a seasonal illness like flu. It's a fundamental part of their brain, their makeup. It's who they are as a human being. The identity first language effectively tells society that they should be respected along with their differences, not in spite of them. This perspective is all about celebrating neurodiversity, the idea that brain differences are a natural and valuable part of human development. It also avoids the stigma of implying that autism is a disease or something undesirable that someone is suffering from. In fact, research from the National Autistic Society, that's NAS, has shown that 61% of autistic people actually prefer the term autistic, which highlights just how strong that preference is within the community itself. On the other hand, why do some people still prefer person-first language? Well, this approach became popular across the wider disability community to emphasize a person's humanity before their diagnosis. So that sounds like a good idea too. The goal there was fighting back against dehumanization. So some people use this because they want to make sure they aren't being defined by their autism, or because that's simply the language they taught as being the most professional and respectful way to speak. The core aim is always to put the person's humanity front and centre. So now, does every single autistic person in the world feel strongly about one or the other? Absolutely not. While there's a clear trend toward identity-first language right now, some people don't have an opinion. They don't have any preference. They might feel that autism were removed, they wouldn't be the same person, so they embrace identity-first language. Others might feel more comfortable with person-first language because it challenges the old negative ways that disabilities were defined. And for some, the specific term is far less important than the underlying respect and kindness in how they're being spoken to in the first place. So their focus, those people, is much more on inclusion and accessible support than on some debate about words and names and linguistics. So how can you navigate those preferences in everyday life? Well, the most important rule is that individual preference is key. If you don't know, ask. If you know how a specific person prefers to be described, use that language if you can. It's that simple. If you aren't sure, it's actually fairly safe to go straight to identity first language or autistic person. He's autistic, she's autistic, they're autistic. It's generally considered acceptable. It's increasingly preferred by the autistic community. So it's a fairly safe bet if you're not sure. Regardless of which term you or the person you're speaking to prefers, there are some phrases we should always avoid. Have you ever heard someone say, yeah, he suffers from autism? Or even worse, yeah, she's afflicted with autism. Now, those terms imply that the person's life is a negative or burdensome experience, and those are widely considered offensive, so let's not go there. Phrases that you often hear, like, oh yeah, everyone's a little autistic, or everyone's on the spectrum somewhere, they are factually incorrect. They are not true. It's not the case. What they're doing is dismissing the genuine lived experiences of people who are actually autistic. So, using respectful and appropriate language is such a simple but powerful way to demonstrate that you understand the value and integrity of every person you meet. By staying informed, by asking people what they prefer, and by being mindful of their choices, hopefully we'll all contribute to a society that is much more accepting and compassionate overall. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe now on YouTube and follow Autism Info Centre on social media, or visit autisminfocentre.org on the web for free autism news, articles, books, videos, podcasts, resources and courses. See you in the next video.